Welcome back to Vertical Thoughts, the climbing podcast by climbers for climbers. I'm here today with a very special guest, Katie Jo Myers. Katie?
Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here.
We're happy to have you here in the studio. You are the first person to record in this new studio setup.
I like it. You guys did a great job setting this up.
Thank you. If you are listening on Spotify, iTunes, or Podbean, head on over to YouTube and just give it a look. Not only are we beautiful, but the room is also beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. High quality, really. Whoever put this together really
did a great job.
They knew what they were doing. Yeah. You are not only a rock climber, avid rock climber, but you are also an adventure photographer and a self-proclaimed pirate. Is that right?
Yeah. I live on a sailboat, so
Have you come from me booty? We can cut that out. It's fine.
You know, considering we're talking about sexism here,
I am the problem.
I'm not sure that's appropriate. No.
Yeah, I'm just messing with you. But seriously, like if you come for our treasure.
Yeah, of course. Actually,
I've got another thing coming.
Actually come for your cat.
That is our treasure.
I know.
We have no other possessions.
She's beautiful and I want her.
Yeah, if you head over to YouTube, you may catch a glimpse of the cat who's around. She's also the producer. And also, how are you feeling? How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. I'm like kind of nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've never been on a podcast before, and this is kind of like a big one to be starting with, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We're really happy to have you.
Yeah,
Thanks for agreeing to come on.
No, thank you for inviting me.
I can understand being nervous. Most of our guests who come on for the first time are nervous. It's totally normal. And not only that, but it's a hefty topic of discussion that we have today, but one that definitely deserves some discussion.
I think so, yeah. So it's important.
Yeah, that's why we're here. And thank you for agreeing to talk about this topic with me. I know it's a little rough. But before we get started and dig into that a little bit deeper, just tell the listeners and your fans and just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of your roots in climbing, your history, climbing history, what led you to be a prestigious guest of a prestigious show?
I think luck.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, so I've been climbing about 8 years now. I started after I graduated college and I moved to LA. I was kind of like in this big city all alone, just working like crazy, driving in traffic every day, kind of like lonely, having a hard time, and realized like I needed an outlet. I needed something to do besides like sit in my car and like scream at the other cars in front of me. So I did a bunch of research and found that there was this climbing gym like a mile from my work. And growing up, I'd always been, really active. I was a gymnast all the way through college, and I thought that, having another sport to kind of like step in for gymnastics would be really helpful. And it was like instantly when I started climbing, I just kind of like fell in love with it. The like the flexibility and the like acrobatic movement was really similar to my gymnastics, so I kind of like it just translated really well. And I don't know, I went one day and then just like never stopped.
Cool. What gym was that?
That was Recreation in Santa Monica.
Cool. Do you have a home gym or one that you consider that?
Right now I would consider Cliffs of Id in Culver City to be my home gym. That's kind of where I train the most.
Really cool gym.
Yeah. It's really nice.
If you're in Southern California, definitely check out that gym if you happen to be in the area. It's worth a trip. Let's just dive right into it.
All right.
We're going to start real quick by disclaiming ourselves, the show. Katie agreed to be our guest here today. We agreed on a topic to discuss, but we just want to make sure that our intentions are clear to the listeners, to the viewers, to anyone who may have stumbled across this. Most importantly, and of the utmost importance, our intentions, need to be clear here, because we are not here to cast blame at anyone. We're not here to point fingers or to tell you that there's something wrong with the climbing community, because I don't, there's something wrong with people in general. It's just how we are, but I don't think that the climbing community is a negative thing. We're not here to bring negativity to the climbing community at all. This is supposed to be a positive discussion. We're here to shed some light on something that maybe should be talked about, maybe something you haven't thought about before or haven't personally experienced, but someone close to you may have. That's really why we're here. We're just here to kind of bring some light to something that, for the most part, stays in the dark, I think. For a lot of people, it's something you don't experience every day at the gym or at the crag or whatever. But it is certainly something that goes on, kind of behind the scenes. So we're here to talk about it a little bit. And did you have some thoughts on that before we start as well?
Yeah, I kind of put together a bit of a disclaimer as well, because I was really nervous to talk about this. I know it's a subject that's really sensitive and that it's going to be hard or impossible to please everyone with what we have to say. So
right.
Like you said, the intention behind it, I think, is really important. So the first thing I wanted to say was I had posted about this on Instagram that, we were going to speak on this subject of like sexism and sexual harassment in climbing. And I was really surprised by the amount of people who wrote back who said either that doesn't exist in climbing or they were just really surprised that it could exist. And then there were other people who thought that speaking about it publicly was sort of like divisive or harmful to the community.
Mm-hmm.
So my response to that was that I think like as a whole, climbers are pretty like progressive, we're a pretty tight-knit community, but we're also just like a microcosm of society in general. So anything that exists out there is going to exist in here too. Whether that's sexism or racism or other type of discrimination, like it does exist. You might not see it every day. You might not experience it for yourself, but I think it's important to like shed light on it and be aware of the experiences of others.
Mm-hmm.
And talking about it is also, like you said, it's not meant to bash anyone or blame anyone. It's really meant to just like shed light, be educational, and maybe incite some change that make climbing like a safer, more welcoming community.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was one thing I wanted to say. The second thing was I thought it was really important to point out that even though I am a female and I have experiences with sexual harassment and sexism, I'm still speaking from a really limited perspective. Like, I'm white, straight, cisgender, able-bodied, like from a good socioeconomic background, and I live in a really progressive area of the world. So I definitely can't speak for everybody. I have a lot of, privilege in where I come from.
Sure.
So I just kind of want to put that out there so that people know that like I'm kind of talking about my own stories or from my own perspective, but there's so many more out there that maybe, other people potentially have it worse than I've had or so.
That's a really good point. I think empathy is the most important part of this.
Yeah.
I think talking about it, if you took one thing away from our discussion today, it is just to try and have some empathy, try and think more about other people and how they may interpret something, how something may make them feel. Mm-hmm. That's all it comes down to. And that is broad spectrum. That is not just with rock climbing or with sexism. That is everything. Yeah. If you can truly kind of ground yourself in empathy, you will learn to be a better communicator, a better friend. Just the relationships in your life can improve just based on how, you're able to empathize with people in general, how things may make them feel. And our discussion today is purely that. It's just a discussion. We're not psychiatrists or sociologists or, we're not here to tell you this is how sexism stops today. Because I don't know. I have no idea. It may never stop. That's just what it is. But at the very least, we want to, like we've been saying, just get you thinking about it a little bit. Yeah. You know what I mean? If everyone just kind of was a little bit more conscious of maybe there is a problem and maybe we should try to avoid it if we can, I think the whole situation would improve.
I think so. Yeah, having that empathy and then just respect in general for others, treating everyone at like a high level is really important, and having an understanding of maybe, where they're coming from and their experiences rather than just seeing it through your own lens is really important.
Absolutely. And like I said before, we're not here to spark a huge debate. Neither of us are really opening the floor up to come challenge us on Instagram DMs about our opinions, because I'm going to try to state pretty minimal, amount of opinions today. I want this mostly to just be open discussion about things we've experienced. And today we're going to do something a little bit more unique for the show so far, and something we haven't done very much, but I'm really excited about. Today's going to be, I figured the best and most organic way to structure this was with community feedback. Okay. Again, because, like you said, you have a limited perspective. I have a limited perspective. Everyone has their own, limited perspective. So I figure we just shotgun it out there and get as many limited perspectives as we can.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's a good approach.
Awesome. I have a few. Katie has a few to share as well, and then we're going to go through maybe some of our own personal experiences. This is a rough one purely just because there's so much to talk about.
Yeah.
We're supposed to limit these to roughly an hour-ish. We'll do our darndest. I promise you that. So we're going to start sharing a couple experiences. Now, basically what I did is I reached out to the community on Instagram, Facebook, a couple different social media platforms, and talked to a couple people in person. And I just put it out there. You know, basically the question I asked was, in what ways have you experienced sexism or sexual harassment in climbing? And the reason I asked that question is because it's something that's been on my mind a lot lately. You're familiar with the Instagram account Chaucy DMs? Have you seen that? I would look at it.
Okay, I will. I don't actually know that one.
It is dedicated to, and I'd like to shout out their Instagram, by the way. If anyone hasn't followed them or hasn't seen them, just take a look. It is dedicated to, from what I understand, sketchy messages that female climbers have received in their DMs.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah, I imagine.
It's abhorrent, and it's also really funny. Like, I hate to say that, but some of them are like, oh my God, someone actually said that. Yeah,
exactly.
And some of them are so ridiculous, and some of them I think are maybe attention grabby, but it really made me think, like, women in general get this stuff. I don't get this stuff, so thus I don't know it exists, until I was brought to my Instagram feed, and then I was like,
wow,
that's really bold. You must be really hot, dude, because but I reached out to the community, and we got some responses from our listeners, our viewers, and some of our fans about just even simple, small ways in which they've experienced it. And I'll share some, and then we'll discuss them.
Okay.
Pretty simple. This one was the first one I received. This was pretty simple. Again, being told in which routes my ass looks the best, or which ones the view from the floor up is the best.
Wow. I've never gotten that. I'm glad I haven't. I think I would be pretty upset.
That's atrocious.
That's really bad.
If someone said that to someone I knew, not even like my girlfriend, if I heard those words come out of someone's mouth, I wouldn't know what to do. That's ridiculous.
I'm trying to imagine like what my response would be if something like that happened. And
what do you say? What do you do?
I feel like I would just turn around and just stare and be open mouthed, and then be like, yeah, I can't believe you just said that.
Yeah. And I think the kind of person who says something like that feeds on that moment of hesitation.
I think they might. Yeah.
They know you can't say anything.
They kind of like want to get a rise out of you. They think it's probably pretty funny when actually it's pretty offensive.
It's horrible. I mean, we're starting hot right out of the gates here. And that's how it was for me too. As soon as I put this out there, I got that in response, and I was like, I'm not ready for this one. This is rough. I have 4 sisters, no brothers. So this stuff is rough for me.
Yeah. It's probably.
I'm like, no one talks bad to my sisters. No. And then they're like, they do. And I'm like, whom, and where?
I will hunt them down.
So I think that's what it comes down to is the only thing that I can speak to that is that those kinds of people, like you said, looking for a reaction, they want to catch you speechless.
So, okay, I need to backtrack because I said that's never happened to me, but I actually do have a really similar incident where somebody basically just said oh, you have a really nice gap between your legs. And I was so offended. I was so upset. I was telling my friends, I'm I'm going to call this person out because I know who they are. And I'm going to bash them all over Instagram. But instead I kind of it cooled off for a second. And I was like, no, I'm going to approach them first.
That's good.
And we're going to have a conversation. And it was really, really surprising to me that when I approached this person and was like, hey, that's very offensive. And you can't speak to women like that. He was absolutely clueless. Just wait, what? I thought I was giving you a compliment. And I was like, no. That's not a compliment. That, no. Mm-hmm. And we ended up having quite a long discussion about it, and sort of his whole tone changed throughout the discussion to realize that you can't speak about a woman's body like that, and you can't make those comments. And I kind of left it actually feeling that was really productive. Yeah. We accomplished something here by speaking instead of just getting angry, even though, anger is kind of a legitimate reaction there.
It is. And it's the initial reaction. Yeah. And good for you for pushing past that. I'm bad at that.
It's hard.
But, I mean, you touch on something legitimate there. Most guys grow up around guys and don't know how to talk to a woman. They don't know how to address a woman, or, you know, that they just maybe shouldn't comment on a woman's body at all.
Yeah.
Most guys just don't know that. And that's not necessarily your fault. If you had never been told that, if no one ever taught you that, how are you supposed to know that? That's a cultural problem. I think that's a little bit bigger than rock climbing, for sure.
I think that's definitely something that comes down to like mindsets ingrained in society. And if you don't know, then it's really hard for you maybe to like say the right things or differentiate when you say the wrong things. So having that like ability to have a discussion is really important.
Yeah, be open to reactions. If you say something that makes someone uncomfortable, find out why. Find out why it made them uncomfortable, and maybe try not to do it again. You know, that's a constructive way to converse with people. You know, if you say something that gets a reaction from someone, don't just back off and be like, whatever, you know, that's just your problem. No, that's everyone can be, you know, offended by different things. Of course, there's different tolerances, but just in general, some people just aren't taught what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And of course, you can make the argument, you know, common sense, be respectful, that kind of thing, but some people just don't know, unfortunately. So, you know, teach them.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of like, to me, that felt like such a victory. The fact that like we actually had a discussion about it and both of us walked away feeling like, okay,
you know,
feel
like a little bit better.
Something positive came from this, and somebody learned something, and like, you know, like we've spread a better community through this one interaction.
Exactly. And now he's probably more conscious of the things he says.
Yeah, I mean, I think so.
Just from that one experience. You would hope so. Right? Let's get him on the show. We take a caller. No, but that's it. Just talking about it is all you need to do sometimes. That's a good one. I'll move on to the second one here. This was a really good one. All these are anonymous, but to those of you who submitted these, I encourage you, you know, listen for yours, and maybe if you have any discussion for us afterwards, and reach out to us. I'd like to know, you know, how you felt about these experiences. But hypermasculinity when it comes to spraying unwanted beta or helping with a climb. Yeah. I would be hard pressed to say that that's not the most common one at the climbing gym. I see that relentlessly all the time. It happens to my girlfriend Brooke all the time when we're there together. And often we had like part of a whole episode on just beta spraying and like what it is and when to do it and when not to do it. And part of the thing that we said there was pretty simply just don't spray up. You know, if there's someone obviously better than you, like you can give them feedback if they request it, but try not to like assert your opinion in someone else's climbing, because that person may be working out a climb themselves or maybe struggling. And, you know, every climb's a battle. Last thing you want to do is like jump in and ruin it for them, ruin the surprise, I guess. But it's happened to me before, and I get like red in the face. I'm like, shut your mouth. She's better than you. But I think that's one of those things that people in the moment maybe don't think about being rude.
I think so too. And I agree that that's probably one of the biggest complaints that I've like hear, and one of the biggest things that I see is like the unwanted beta spraying. And in general, I think the best thing to do is just ask. Yeah. Like ask before you give someone beta, because whether they're male or female, there's probably a good chance that they want to work it out for themselves. And I mean, I'm guilty of it too. Sometimes I get really excited when someone's climbing, and then I'm like, ooh, do this. Yeah. And that's definitely not coming from like a malicious place or thinking like, oh, I'm better than them. Yeah. You know, like that guy can't climb. No. It's just like, it's an excitement of like sharing your knowledge. And then, you know, other times it might be related to like sexism and thinking, oh, like that girl obviously can't do it. Like I better tell her. Yeah. So I think in that situation, like, again, it's a thing where maybe you don't get angry right away, but just kind of say like, oh, hey, next time, can you please ask before you just give me beta?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's all just like being proactive and then being reactive. Yeah. You have to be proactive by, you know, trying not to do things like that, or if it happens, try to prevent it in the future. Right. But how you react is also a really big part of that. You know, it tends to get my blood boiling a little bit when I get unwanted beta, just because I'm at a point in my life where the climbs that I'm projecting are the hardest that I've ever projected. I'm at like my peak. It's downhill from here. So I'm like, don't give me beta. I need this, man. This is all I got. But I think very specifically, and everything we're saying I think goes both ways, but I think this one specifically comes down to, again, intentions. If you don't necessarily, like you said, have malicious intentions, that's a big thing. If you do, maybe you don't, because that sucks.
Yeah, it does suck. Keep your mouth shut. Yeah. I mean, I do think it goes both ways, but it could be something that's just sort of like rooted in society where, men have been dominant and women are sort of the oppressed. So when females are climbing, there's sort of this like reaction to just be like, oh, like I need to step up and be the man and like tell them what to do. But that, that's not necessary. And I think a lot of women, like, we like figuring it out for ourselves. And we're strong and we're capable and we want that to be recognized. So when someone kind of just comes up and immediately spits beta in your face, it's like, oh, thanks for thinking I couldn't do it. Yeah.
That's kind of how it can feel. And especially when it's someone you're close to, someone you care about, when I'm with my girlfriend and she's climbing, sometimes I'm like, do this, put the foot out there. Just drop me. She has to tell me to shut my mouth sometimes because you get excited. But this makes me think of a time in my youth when I went on I was part of a church that did a trek. Basically, we take, like pioneers, we get the big wooden wagons. It was the whole thing. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Several days. We just go up and we're hauling these big giant wagons, through the mountains in San Bernardino County. And awesome, by the way. Awesome.
That sounds kind of awesome, though.
It was really awesome. It was cool. But there was one part specifically where they told us all the boys are coming with us and all the women are going to stay. And they didn't tell us why, but we went to do some like military drills that were time appropriate, I guess. And we all just thought it was for novelty. But then they were like, oh, we'll come over here and look over this ridge. And we looked over the ridge and then there was the women pulling the wagons up like the steepest grade of the whole trail. And they were like, you guys can't help them. And we're like, oh no. Because that instinct, right? It kicks in and we're like, see them struggling. Some of them are falling over and they're sweating and like, and you're like, you got to do something. This is not right. Like instinctually in your body, you're like, I need to help. But they made us not help very specifically to teach us that they can do it.
Yeah.
And they're going to struggle and they're going to have adversity. And some of them are going to like maybe get really like lightheaded and pass out. I was traumatized, obviously, by the experience, but that women are just as capable as men, physically, mentally, in all ways, and they're able to overcome the same things.
Yeah.
They don't need our help. We should help each other, of course. But that was a big moment for me, growing up in, maybe what you might describe as a male-dominated society in that way, and I was just really eye-opening for me. A moment where I remember learning that women physically are strong, just like us.
Yeah, we're like super strong.
Super strong. That's a good one, though. And I think the last thing I'm going to say is just the intention thing. It comes down to intentions. If you find yourself doing that, or if you catch yourself spraying beta at someone, maybe stop and think, what are my intentions? Am I taking into consideration that they may not need help or may not want help? Just kind of go through the process before spitting it out there.
Yeah. And just, when all else fails, like just ask.
Yeah.
If someone's really struggling, it's very easy to come up to them and be like, hey, like, do you want beta on that? I just figured it out myself. And if they say no, like, that's completely fine.
Absolutely.
And then, even just like cheer them on and be like, that's awesome. Like, you're going to get it.
Yeah. That's a good one, though. So thank you for submitting that one. That's a pretty common one that occurs. And I think it's good to discuss it a little bit. This is another good one, was microaggressions from commenting on my yoga pants or my ass while I'm climbing, not taking me seriously until I got, air quotes, good enough. That's a big one, I think. Whereas men are taken super seriously immediately. And then the last part was comments like, wow, you're really good for a girl.
Yeah. That's funny. That's actually on my list here with like the backhanded compliments of like, yeah, you're good for a girl, or like, oh, like, that's really great. You sent that problem, but it's only because you're so small or you're so flexible. And there's no consideration for the fact that, actually I've been climbing this many years and I train this many hours a day and I work really hard.
Yeah.
It, like, people find excuses for your strength, and that's, that's not really appropriate. I don't think they do that as much for other men. Like,
yeah.
But yeah, I had actually wanted to mention that earlier, that I noticed myself that as I got to be a stronger climber, there definitely comes with that a level of respect that wasn't there when I was more of a beginner. You kind of like, people sort of like, when you send something hard, they sort of like stand up and they pay attention and they like talk to you a little bit differently than when I have so many instances of when I was like a newer climber, of walking up to a climb and like hearing people just kind of like laughing behind my back, or seeing them roll their eyes like, oh, she's not gonna be able to do that. And so it's, I don't know, like that's tough. Like everyone should get the same level of respect. It doesn't matter about your ability or your skill level. It's just that like we're all humans, and humans deserve to be respected and treated well.
Yeah. And who cares if you were able to do a climb because you were shorter or small? I mean,
no, we all have different like abilities and strengths, and
there is no set difficulty. No. I mean, every climb's different for everyone, and I hate that one. I talk about that one on the show a lot, actually.
Really?
But I hate when people say, well, I always say, like in dating, when I was dating, I'm 5'10", generously. I was the shortest guy that every girl that I tried to date had ever met. She was like, oh, normally like I date guys that are 6 foot, you know. Wow. And I was like, oh, that's great. Great. I'm tiny. I'm a hobbit. In climbing, I'm a giant. I'm like, people are like, you're tall. So I'm like, dude, I am 5'10". Like,
that's not
I'm
that
not
tall.
Yeah, like I'm 5'10" and +1. So, but I get it all the time. And honestly, it drives me nuts, not in like an injustice way, like I'm being discriminated against, but I'm just like, that is absurd. You're not thinking that out at all.
It's funny because I'm only like 5'4" and a half, but I actually get it a lot that I'm tall.
Really?
Because I'm quite lanky, and I think I appear taller, but I've had multiple times people come up to me and just be like, well, like you can just reach it because you're tall, or that's easier for you because you're tall. And I'm like, wait, actually, I think I'm pretty short. But it's, I don't know, that's like an ego, it's an ego thing. I think we all try to protect ourselves a little bit, and so there's always a reason like, oh, like they could do it because of this and I couldn't. And maybe we need to just give more credit to people in general for like, hey, like you did awesome, like you figured out new beta for yourself, or you made that work. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's difficult for everyone.
Oh yeah, that's definitely not like a gender thing. That's just all people.
Yeah, and climbing's hard, no matter your body type or it's just rough. So if anyone ever does a hard climb, just congratulate them. That's all you need to say. Just congratulate them on their strength and progress, because I'm sure it did not come easily to them. No one's ever hopped on a V12 outdoors and been like, I don't know, I just started doing this for fun. Like, no one's ever done that. It's everyone works for their progression in climbing, and so congratulate them. Yeah. Be happy for them. Support them. Like Paul Robinson said in episode 10, elevate the community. We take the community as a whole, not female climbers or male climbers, but elevate the whole community. Bring everyone up. That's a really good one. But the good for a female climber thing, I experience that one pretty often as well. And you're right, people stop and look. If there's a strong female climber in the gym, we had our competition recently at Vital Climbing Gym, and Brooke Rabbitoux showed up. And she started climbing, and of course, everyone puts down whatever they were doing and watch. And that's not a bad thing, because she's really fun to watch. She's amazing.
She's a strong climber.
She's incredibly good. She was also with her friend, Marco, who was a male person. And he was also extremely good. Not as many eyes. Not as many eyes on him. It's the way it works.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think part of that could be a stylistic thing too. Like,
sure.
Females climb, I think, generally in a really aesthetic way. Like we are, tend to be like a little more flexible maybe, or like slightly more graceful on the wall. And so it is really fun to watch other females climb. You're like, wow, like that's really cool beta. They're not just kind of like jumping or like burling through a move. So I get that aspect of it, but then also it's sort of like, oh, it's a strong girl. What?
Yeah.
Like, you're an alien? What?
takes everyone back. But I mean, it's cool to watch people at that level climb, period.
Yeah. Oh, and like, it is.
For me, I was just blown away by both of them, because I had forerun the climbs for the competition, not successfully. The climbs that they were warming up on, I was like, did you see that? Did you guys see him do that? That's my project for the next year, dude. Like, I'll never do that. It was really cool, though. It was really cool that they came out and did that. Unfortunately, they weren't able to compete in finals, but discussion for another day. But yeah, that's a good one. I mean, nothing's any easier for them than it is for you. Just adopt that mindset. It may not be true. I mean, like, it may be easier for them, but why think that way?
Yeah.
There's no positive results that come in thinking, oh, that was just easier for them. Just make yourself be stronger. If they can do it and you can't, pull harder. Okay, I have 2 more, and then I'm going to let you share some.
Okay.
This one, I liked this one. This was a controversial opinion on competitive climbing. I really like this perspective. It's very interesting. This person said, climbing competitions should be climber versus climber rather than gender-based. When the competition splits the genders, that is sexism. That's a big statement. I mean, that is. You're calling many large climbing organizations sexist. And I do respect that point of view. That one's really tricky to move around.
It is. Because, you look at climbing and you're like, okay, grade-wise, there are women doing the hardest grades now. Like, there's not really a disparity between the genders. Like,
right.
Females have, like, really come up in the sport. And so looking at it on that level, it is like, why is there a gender separation in the competitions? But then, maybe if you kind of like backstep to like a more scientific point of view, there are differences physically between men and women, like in regards to, muscle mass and strength, I think. And so maybe that's why in these climbing competitions, they generally set routes, I would say, a bit differently for the men than they do for the women.
Exactly.
So, potentially if we wanted to sort of like combine the types of routes and then make things that are, I don't know, like cater to both in one comp, like, hey, that could actually work.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. It would work. Yeah. We could do it. It would have to change. Yeah.
I think the formats would have to change.
Yeah. Would I call it sexism? For example, the IFSC separating it into 2 genders? I don't think so. Again, I think it comes into the intentions, you know what I mean? Because there's another side of it that maybe is not being taken into consideration. And I just want to be clear, I'm not disagreeing with the person who said this. I'm going to officially not take a stance on this one because I'm not educated enough really to take an official stance. But I think the other side you have to think of is you don't want to give anyone a disadvantage. You don't want to, if there is a difference, let's say for humor's sake that there was, a physiological difference wherein, one group of people was stronger than the other, you wouldn't want to give them, the same things because one may struggle more than the other. I don't know if that's accurate or not, or if that's, physiologically correct. However, if we do entertain that thought, then it kind of breaks that down a little bit more. So I think that one is for not necessarily us to decide if that's correct or not. I think it's a very interesting thought, though. It's not something that I've thought about where I was like, oh, they need to all compete against each other. But one person commented on that, and their comment was specifically about speed climbing. They said, look at the top male speed climbing times and look at the top female speed climbing times. And there's a gap there. There's a difference.
On the exact same route.
Yeah. Why that is, again, I am not the right person to tell you, but it does exist.
I think like I'm just gonna kind of like rely on the science thing, even though I'm not a scientist at all, and I actually am not educated enough to be saying this either. But there's things I've heard, such as like I think men have like 25% more red blood cells, or and then also like men have testosterone. And like differences. So there is physiological differences between men and women. There's also can potentially be height differences in general. I would say across the field, like men are taller, women are a little smaller.
Yeah, playing averages.
So there is those type of differences that maybe, like especially in comp routes where you don't have the ability maybe to use an intermediate hold or like use a higher foot like we do outside, like that can make a difference. Yeah. In the outcome, I would say.
Yeah, it's a really give and take kind of situation. And I will say to this person, if you're listening, there are competitions out there that are co-ed. I mean, there's climbing competitions that are, climber against climber. I think that's a very interesting thought. It's not for me to say whether or not all of competitive climbing should change in that way. No, I don't know.
I think it's a really interesting point. It is. And it's a hard thing to get around.
That's like really tricky. Yeah.
It's really tricky. Because you don't really think that like all these competitions are sexist. They're just trying to have an even playing field. Yeah. And
And it's hard to do.
Yeah, it is hard to do, especially in that like man-made setting. I think part of why like females are succeeding so much outdoors is that just the nature of rock is that there is more of an even playing field, like I said, with like you can do different movements to get like achieve the same objective. And not quite as much with comp routes.
Yeah, it's a little different. And I would hope that if you were to ask the people who were in charge of that kind of thing, they wouldn't just be like, oh no, women are weaker, we can't do that. Yeah. I really don't think that's what they would say.
That.
Yeah, I don't think that's it. Again, it just comes down to intentions. They have to take so many different factors into considerations when they design these things. And sports classically throughout history have been separated in that way. Am I progressive enough to say that should change? Sure, I think in some ways that men and women should compete against each other and together. And I think that there's healthy competition there, absolutely. There's female climbers who climb at my gym that kick my butt in the competition.
I actually know a female climber who she just won a comp and she had actually qualified for both the men's and women's finals. So like that's awesome. Pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
Go Kelly.
The strong men, strong women everywhere. It's just the nature of the beast. I can't say whether or not competitive climbing overall should be climber versus climber or gender based. I don't know. That's really cool though. Thank you for bringing that to discussion. One more. Oh, actually, I'm going to backpedal a little bit because I have one from a male perspective. Again, numbers wise, not for any particular reason. A lot of the responses that I got were from women. There was one from a male perspective that was very interesting to me and maybe even resonated a little bit with me. But this person said, I have had issues in the past of girls who know a lot of strong male climbers belittling my climbing progression, constantly comparing me to other stronger male climbers or even female climbers, teasing me with things like, a girl is getting stronger than you. Are you going to let that happen? I've heard that said before, unfortunately. It's maybe even been cast in my direction before. It's really unfortunate. But the next thing that this person said is, I think there's a precedent that exists that men should be stronger than women. Which somehow is sexist towards both men and women equally, because it tells women that they have to be weaker, but also looks down upon men who are naturally lacking in strength.
I think that's really interesting. And I mean, I don't think those comments are appropriate at all. That just goes back to like a lack of respect for another human. And I don't like this concept that it's like males versus females. Like, you should be this, you should be this, and we're against each other. Like that's not how our community should be or how society should be.
It's antiquated. Yeah. Also, it's old. I mean, that's preschool playground stuff. You know what I mean? Like, oh, she's faster than you. Like that kind of teasing from adults, even in a professional setting sometimes.
Not cool.
Not cool. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, guys, sometimes, yes, she's going to get stronger than you. And yes, you're going to let that happen. Sometimes it's going to happen. Me being coming into climbing, being just very weak. I mean, I played soccer my whole life. I never did anything upper body. I don't think I touched a weight until I was probably 19. Then I picked up a very small one. But being just naturally lacking in strength, like this person said, that resonated with me a little bit, because not just in climbing, but just in the world in general, there's always kind of this precedent and kind of the bar set of like, well, you should be stronger than me because I'm a girl and you're a guy. And again, that's bad in both directions, because it tells the women that they should be weaker and the guys that they have to be stronger. And then it creates some insecurities, not being naturally strong, or especially in the male world, if you're not jacked, you know what I mean? If you're not muscular, there's weird competition that goes on behind the scenes of like, male dominance, being like, who's the biggest in the room, weird stuff like that. I never really got it at all. I kind of respect it if that's what you do. If you're a bodybuilder, you work really hard for that. It's cool. Like, maybe don't compare yourself to other people so much, because not everyone does what you do. And that's a rough one. And I'm sorry that happens, but I think it's cool to kind of bring the other perspective into that, because we talked about that a little bit with, women being belittled as the weaker sex. You don't think about the flip side of that so much, though, is that forces men then to have to be stronger.
Right. And I think the thing with like sexism and it being so ingrained in society is that it does affect the way we all interact, whether that's like the way men treat women, the way women react to men, or even the way that women treat each other. There's like all these layers to it that, like we kind of, there's a lot that we need to work on.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. And again, it's not just in climbing. This is worldwide. We just want to make sure that the climbing community is self-aware, I guess. And, this is a place of, supposed to be camaraderie, and we're all supposed to elevate each other, like I was saying previously. So this kind of thing, just if you hear it happening, maybe just discourage it. Certainly don't contribute to it, but it's okay for a man to be weaker than a woman. It's okay in both directions, or a woman to be stronger than a man. It's just one's worked harder than the other, probably.
Yeah, or just been at it longer, and it is what it is. I don't know. I think any comparison to another person is never going to be beneficial.
Yeah.
It should all be about your own journey that you're on. So, if you're at this level, that's great. Keep working hard. If you're at this level, keep going, but don't belittle anyone who might be below you or above you.
Absolutely.
Don't belittle anyone.
Yeah. Climbing is so personal.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be, I say this so much. My listeners hate me probably. It shouldn't be you versus them. It should be you versus you last time you climbed. Always.
Always, yeah.
Your own progression. That's really good. Okay, my last one.
Okay.
And then it's your turn. Get ready. This one made me sad, actually. I was at my computer and I was sad by this story, but this is a story that was sent to me on Facebook. She says, regarding sexism and climbing, my biggest example is climbing with my ex-boyfriend. I was by far the more experienced climber. He'd only been climbing for 2 months when I met him, and I was an experienced trad and multi-pitch climber. I brought him on his first multi-pitch, taught him how to place gear, and then convinced him to come to Indian Creek with me. I'm not the strongest climber when it comes to crack climbing. I'm pretty skilled, and I absolutely love it. He understandably struggled when he first got there, having never climbed pure crack before, and all of a sudden the guy I'd been dating for 2 months, who was previously laid back and sweet, became a gigantic asshole. He started insulting me constantly, telling me I sucked at climbing, giving me a hard time when I fell on something or asked to take. He would not listen when I tried to teach him something and would automatically disregard what I had to say, which, keep in mind, he had zero experience in this type of climbing and almost no experience, no experience in climbing in general at this point. When a man would tell him the same thing I was telling him, he would listen and adapt the way he was doing things. That's not quite the end of that, but it's really telling of a lot of things.
Yeah.
And really sad.
It is really sad, and it definitely demonstrates a lot of insecurities there about maybe being the less experienced climber and having to follow after a female maybe.
Yeah.
But I also kind of see a layer in there of and I know this is something I've struggled with before. It can be hard to climb with your partner.
Yeah.
There's a lot of dynamics going on there, and so sometimes it's easier to hear an outside perspective. But if there's an insecurity from someone being weaker than the other, that's never going to go well.
Yeah.
It should be much more about supporting the other person.
Absolutely. And it's hard. You want to be strong for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to be good, and you want to show them, that you're strong and capable, because in almost a carnal way, that's what you want to show to a potential mate. You know what I mean?
Right.
You want to show them you can take care of yourself and take care of them if needed. And that goes both ways. I'm not speaking from a man's perspective. But insecurity can destroy a relationship very quickly.
Yeah.
And the part that really hit me was when she was, talking about how this guy was a sweetheart before. Take him crack climbing and, kind of show him up a little bit. And all of a sudden this guy's an asshole. That's tragic, and also sadly probably pretty common. Yeah. I think that when you bring someone into climbing, it can be at first very intimidating, especially coming from my personal views. If I had a girl that I was interested in and then she took me to do something that she was way better at than me, I can understand why that might be difficult. I don't know if I would react exactly like that. That's pretty rough, especially, talking down to her and making her feel bad if she falls, or I think that more than being telling of sexism, or more than being telling of the climbing community, I think that's telling of that person specifically.
And the insecurities that they're kind of carrying. But I guess it could go back to your previous comment about, the men are supposed to be the stronger one. So for him to be in that situation where he's obviously the least or the less experienced person, it's probably pretty hard mentally. And so then he's taking that out on her when she really does not deserve it.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. A situation that's hard for both people, and unfortunately was not handled it right. Just communication. If you're feeling any kind of insecurities, or, you're struggling with something with your significant other, all I can say is just talk to them about it. I mean, communication is so important. And I promise, if you just bring it up in a, nonchalant fashion, even if you just say, hey, here's how I'm feeling, just hit them with it. If that is a person that you are comfortable around, if that's a person that is right for you, put it that way, they will understand and they'll help you work through that.
Yeah. And they'll want to help with that, I think.
Yeah. You would hope. Yeah. And I'm not to say whether or not that relationship was destined to be successful until climbing came into it. You know what I mean? I think this isn't about climbing. I think that one, goes a little bit further than that even, just to insecurity in general, but it can destroy a happy relationship.
But yeah, definitely a very sad story.
Yeah. She did end with saying that she confronted him about it. And he did admit that it was threatening to him that a woman was a better climber. She said he briefly tried to change his behavior, but then resumed, back the way he was. He refused to admit that he had told me that being better than him was threatening as well. She said it was not a great relationship, but it was a huge relief when I finally left it. And she went on to let me know that she is now in a much happier relationship with someone who supports her.
That's really good.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting that this person had really only been climbing for a couple months and already expected to be, very skilled.
Yeah.
That's kind of, like you said, more telling about that person and where they're coming from, because man, in climbing, you're a beginner for a really long time. I still don't feel like I know very much.
Yeah.
There's always something to learn, and being open to learning is probably the thing that's going to keep you safe and having the most fun for the whole time. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause that's not fun at all. I mean, you go out to a trip to Indian Creek, you know what I mean? Classic climbing area, and you hop on a crack climb. Maybe that's it, actually. Maybe that's why he couldn't. It's crack climbing.
Oh,
that's the problem.
Crack is great.
You can't be good at crack climbing after 2 months of rock climbing.
But you can't.
You should never have expected that. Yeah. But no, experience is a big factor in climbing, and never, if someone has experience, just respect that where it comes from. You can't go back in time and change your experience.
No.
So don't try and catch up to them from behind. Just do your own. And unfortunately that one went south, but I'm happy for her. I'm happy that she found someone who supports her.
Yeah, it's a good ending, happy ending.
Yeah. It would have been too much for me if it wasn't. So I'm good. I'm good that you didn't let it ruin climbing for you. You didn't let it bring you down or anything like that. So, those are the ones that I got that are worth sharing. Do you have a couple for us?
So I didn't really get any very specific stories from anyone. A lot of what I got was really similar sort of feedback with the unwanted beta spraying, the backhanded compliments. Another one was sexualizing things that aren't sexual,
Yeah.
There's ones I've gotten where it's a picture of me doing a heel hook, and people get offended, hey, you should not show your crotch. I'm well, 99.9% of climbing, your legs are apart, so I don't really know what I can do about that. And I think that that's not something that would happen necessarily to men, maybe at all, maybe as much, I don't know. But that's, happened to me several times where it's that photo or that thing I was doing is not sexual in nature. Please don't make it that way.
Why does it have to be?
No, it's just absurd. Climbing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And also even if it was, why do we have to be ashamed of that anyway?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a plethora. We don't get to break out that word often. It's a big moment for us today on the show. There are a plethora of, guys flexing in the mirror with their shirt off, pictures on Instagram. So first of all, that's not wrong, period. If it was, but it's not. And why do we have to make it a sexual thing? People find sex in the weirdest places.
Yeah, they really do.
It's bizarre.
And it kind of, I think that is sort of something again that goes back to our society in general, where women are supposed to be conservative or ashamed of our bodies, and that's so damaging. And so I think nowadays when you take something and turn it into something it's not, that's sort of what it goes back to, and it's not really appropriate.
No, anything can be twisted to be anything else in today's age, especially with the internet, social media, and it's so easy to change someone's intentions because they're not there to defend themselves in person. It's tricky to deal with, but it is the world we live in, and may never change. You know what I mean? At least not completely, but the biggest thing I think is just to be conscious of it happening, and you talked about, and we talked about a little bit, some of the feedback that we got when we asked for feedback from the community was people saying, what sexism? What sexual harassment? Where? That doesn't happen. I wouldn't go as far as to say you are the problem. You know what I mean? It's nothing like that. But if you do feel that there is zero sexism or sexual harassment in climbing, I would encourage you to take a little bit of a closer look. There's sexism, like I said, on both sides of the field. It's not just misogyny. Wherever it exists, we need to be conscious of it. Acknowledge it is the first thing. And I actually got some unexpected feedback from renowned climber and author John Long, who's local here in Southern California. And he had an interesting comment for me, and I didn't know that he would be reaching out, but I want to thank him for doing it. It's a little wordy, so I'm not going to read it word for word. He's an author, so forgive him. But it's about this long on my screen right now, 14-point font. So, but basically what he was saying was, while sharing these experiences is a good first step, he's suggesting that those who share their experiences maybe think about what the best course of action per situation would be in order to start eliminating that problem. Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. I think it comes down to, what he said about each situation.
Yes, yeah. I would agree.
Yeah. If it happened to you specifically, subjectively look at the situation and think about what could have been done differently. Because there is no end all be all, here's how to end sexism. Doesn't exist. And I think people maybe took his comment like that's what he was saying. Don't just tell me what's wrong, tell me how to fix it. It's not really what he was saying. His comment was there just to make it clear that, specifically to the parties who are committing the sexism, to make it clear for them how to stop. Mm-hmm. Because like we talked about, some people maybe just haven't been explained to what they're doing is wrong. And what you said earlier was a really good example. You not only pointed out that something happened that made you uncomfortable, but you addressed it, and told that person how to fix it.
Right. And I think that is a really important thing to do. And I have actually a lot more examples of that with other people where something was said that was kind of even worse. And I was kind of in my mind like, oh my gosh, this person is hopeless. Like, they're super sexist. They're not going to respond well to me reaching out to them.
Right. But
surprisingly, like, a lot of those conversations have been turned around, and we come away with like, oh, I saw your point of view. I saw your point of view. Like, this is great. So I do think that like having open communication about it can be really helpful, and not trying not to react in anger. Like, you might be angry for a minute, but like try to come back and just be like, hey, next time I would suggest maybe like saying this instead, or like, don't spray Betta at me, just ask. It feels a little bit offensive. It feels like you're only doing it because I'm a woman, or like, just have that open communication and make sure the way that you speak to each other is respectful and kind of like, I don't know, like open to the other person's point of view. Yeah. I think that would help.
Yeah. That comes back to empathy, and that's a really good point. John brings this point in of like, the offendee needs to kind of take responsibility for helping the offender understand what's happening. Right. Because you don't always, when you offend someone, I admit it's happened to me plenty of times in my life where I've offended someone and I had no idea until like years later. Oh, wow. Yeah. And then they were like, hey, remember that one time when you said that thing? And I was like, nope, not at all. Because to me, it's, it was just a comment. Yeah. And they were like, well, I've never forgot it. And I'm like, oh no, let's chat about it now, please. And that's just has more to do with how I was raised than anything. I was raised to be open in communication in that way, and to be mindful of the way others feel. And so I think that's a really good point. It's not something I think that people maybe think about. And I think people can react negatively to that because they think, well, that puts the blame then on the person who's offended. It's not their responsibility to fix it. You're right. However, if you want to help overcome it, then that is part of your responsibility, is to provide like some kind of structure, in a way to overcome that, because you can't sit by and let that kind of thing happen to you, because it'll destroy you, and you can't just sit there and take it. Talk to someone about it. Maybe someone else can help you get your words together, and there's help out there, especially in such a tight-knit community like rock climbing. Yeah. I mean, talk to your friends about it. Even if it's not the person who said it, talk to someone else, talk to their friend, you know what I mean, who maybe seems like they'd be a little bit more open to it. Maybe there can be, you know, a little train going. You talk to them and then they talk to the person who said it and say, hey, just so you know, she wasn't comfortable coming forward, or he wasn't comfortable coming forward, but this happened. I just wanted you to know. That's it. Just let them know what happened and why it was, you know, offensive.
Right. And I think another thing to keep in mind is just like, we're all really proud of the climbing community. Like everything I read is about, you know, everyone's so welcoming, everyone's so friendly, like climbing has helped me. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. Like, we're all really proud of this community. So like act in a way that you can be proud of too. Yeah. You know, elevate it. Like Paul Robinson said, elevate the community.
Paul's a genius.
Yes.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, the climbing community is awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I would not, if someone was like, hey, you know, I'm not into rock climbing, but I know that you are. What do you think about the people? I wouldn't be like, sexist pigs, all of them.
No, not at all.
No.
So many of my experiences, like 99%, are super positive. And I would think that for most women, that's the same. But it's just those like just certain specific incidents where it's like cringeworthy. Yeah. And I think that's the stuff that we want to bring a stop to. So.
Exactly. And the first step is this, just discussion.
Yeah.
And I think this has been really productive. And if you're listening to this again, if there's anything you strongly disagreed with or something that maybe triggered you a little bit, feel free to share it with us. But just know that, again, our intentions are not to offend anyone, to point the blame at anyone in particular. We as a whole want the climbing community to be elevated together. I mean, we want to get better as a community of people. And I think the climbing community is, you know, in my experience, in terms of just like, cliques, I guess you could call them. Like, I've been part of various groups of people in my life. You know, I played soccer and then, you know, church groups. And the climbing community to me has been one of the most positive experiences of my life. For
myself as well. It's just, climbing has been amazing, you know, like an amazing part of my life. And the community is a huge part of that.
Yeah. A lot of really good points made. And again, I just want to thank everyone for listening to this. And for those of you who do and who are, you know, I appreciate you coming at this from an objective point of view and realizing that Katie and I are not here to tell you that what you're doing is wrong, or that anything you're doing is wrong. You know, just we're here to talk about it, start the discussion. Hopefully we spark a little more discussion in the climbing community. It's just something that should be talked about.
Yeah. I mean, it should be an open conversation. That our community is made up of men and women, and I think we all want it to be a safe, like, welcome space for everyone. And the only way that can happen is by sharing experiences and being open to learning about the experiences of others.
Absolutely.
And then kind of, you know, work together to make it all better for everyone.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I would encourage, just my last thought is I would encourage, again, if you are unaware of any of this stuff that's happening, this podcast is a good place to start. So thanks for listening. But the Instagram account that I mentioned earlier, Chaucy DMs, I encourage everyone, go take a look at it, and it'll open your eyes, as it opened mine. And I thanked them via Instagram DM for doing what they're doing, because I'm not saying that they're representing a large part of the climbing community at all. They're representing a very small percentage of really gross people, but it'll make you realize that stuff is out there, and we need to combat it actively. Right. We need to come together, male, female climbers. We all have to come together and go at that stuff and just get rid of it. Get it out of the community, because the community is so awesome. I mean, I would say as a community, there's no giant major like gaping flaws in the climbing community. It's very supportive. We're all tend to be very uplifting with each other. Some of the nicest people I've met have been through rock climbing. And even in this podcast, the people that we've met and gotten to talk to, including yourself. Very nice, very friendly. I mean, it's such an awesome and tight-knit community. And I'm not here to tell you there's something wrong with it at all. No. But we need to be actively watching for these things to make sure that there isn't something fatally wrong with the community.
And just, you know, like, even if it's not like a huge issue or like a fatal issue, as you're saying right now, like the fact that there are people in the community who are uncomfortable or who are experiencing negative things, like, we don't want that.
Not at all. So,
you know, let's kind of like rise up.
Weed it out. Rise up. I like that. Sweet. Well, I think that's going to do it. I mean, this is a hard one. Again, we both probably have much more to say.
So much more to say.
Yeah. And I appreciate everyone who's listened to this, and all of Katie's supporters who come out and given us a chance. And I encourage you to listen to, the rest, because we talk about lots of stuff on this show. And thank you so much for coming and joining us.
Thank you. This was really fun. And hopefully we, said some good, productive things.
I'm sure we'll find out.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited to hear it.
No, but is there any final thoughts that you have for the listeners or the folks at home?
I don't know, just, thank you for listening. Thank you for having me. If you guys have questions or concerns, feel free to reach out. And this is, it's an important topic, and I don't think we should shy away from, discussing it with each other. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much for listening. If you're watching this on YouTube, down in the description, we links to finding Katie's stuff, website, Instagram, all your stuff.
Thanks.
If there's anything, I'm going to give you one last minute here just to promote yourself a little bit. Tell the people where they can find you, because after this, I'm sure they're all wanting to know where they can find you.
Oh, I hope for not for pitchforks and
Where do we find this girl?
Where is she?
Got some stuff to say.
Where do they find me? I mean, I'm Los Angeles based. I climb mainly right now around Southern California. I'm going to be, hopefully doing some trips this year out to France and Alaska, and yeah, I'll be out there. Come find me.
And you have a website too, right?
Oh, I do have a website. I've never really promoted it before, but it's rightwander.com. And I just kind of, I keep a little blog of my adventures and some of the work stuff I'm doing. And then I'm mainly on Instagram. Also, it's katiejo.myers.
katiejo.myers. That's where you find her. Maybe before you go find her in person, you shoot her a DM on Instagram or something. Don't just affront her in the gym and be like, listen, I don't know about your views on sexism, but your thigh gap. No, but again, thank you, Katie, for coming on. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We're going to wrap this up. Awesome episode 12. We'll see you guys in episode 13, and we'll see you later.
Bye. Helps when you're just when you have a cat to pet and when you're going to be interactive with. Whoop. And there's water. You're silly.
Yeah, in person is
You're so silly.
good. I think maybe he was just uncomfortable, nervous or something.
It's really makes me miss having a pet.
Yeah, that's sort of tricky on
Both,
sea vessel, yeah.
I mean, I used to have my dog there, but she just passed away.